Welcome to another Hartfelt beer review. My name is Kyle Hart, and today I'm going to be reviewing Untitled Art and Listerman Brewing Company's collaboration, Wisconsin Stout. This stout is brewed with lactose and maple syrup. Untitled Art is a brewing company out of Waunakee, Wisconsin, and Listerman Brewing Company is out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And I really don't know anything about Listerman Brewing Company, but Untitled Art Brewing Company is a small brewing company, and essentially the reason that they're called Untitled Art is because they label their beer without description. Now it gives you an idea of what it is. It tells you this is a Wisconsin Stout brewed with maple syrup and lactose, but they want you to form your own opinion. They don't want to give you some crazy backstory explanation as to what they think their beer should taste like. They want you to form your own unbiased opinion simply based on the taste. They make very, very good IPAs and very good stouts on their own, but in my opinion, Untitled Art does a fantastic collaboration with several other brewing companies. And this happens to be with Listerman Brewing Company out of Cincinnati. I'm going to go ahead and open it. This is 10% alcohol by volume. And like I said, it is an Imperial Stout brewed with maple syrup and lactose. I'm going to open it here and give you a pour. I'll tell you what I think. Does seem to be a bit thin on the pour. Again, I don't know from tasting it. Got a nice head retention, about a finger head. Nice khaki colored head. It's kind of like a coffee creamer color of head. This is there's no coffee added to this. This is simply just an Imperial Stout at 10% alcohol by volume with maple syrup and lactose. Lactose being milk sugar to give it a creamier mouthfeel and flavor. It's still a bit cold. I let this sit out for probably 20 minutes. The colder it is, the more flavorful these darker beers are, such as Imperial Stouts. It's much harder to taste when they're colder. Your palate can't adjust to the variety of flavors that a certain beer may allow if it's too cold. So I'm going to tell you as much as I can. This is still pretty cold. Oh wow, that's very maple forward, or maple syrup forward, sorry. What I've noticed in many beers that brew with maple syrup is that the maple is very faint. And almost it's either hidden or it's overtaken by the other flavors, and it's almost impossible to taste in some beers. Now again, not all beers, but this one is very maple forward as far as the aroma. I mean, it just excuse me, smells like pure maple syrup, which is amazing. I hope this tastes as well as it smells, because you can just really, because there's no vanilla, there's no coffee, there's no chocolate added to this. So this is simply just a maple syrup Imperial Stout with lactose to give it a creamier mouthfeel. You can definitely smell the lactose. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give you a taste, tell you what I think. Cheers. Wow. First thing I'm getting is the alcohol. Normally these Untitled Arts beers are very well balanced. And this is, I could say, very well balanced beer, but surprisingly, the first thing I get is alcohol. I mean, you taste the 10%. I mean, it burns, which is a rare occurrence in beers that I drink. When you get to 13, 14, 15%, sure, you expect that warmth of the ethanol. But at 10%, it's very surprising that you actually get that ethanol. You taste the maple. The maple it tastes like just a pure maple syrup. It doesn't taste like artificial maple syrup at all. It's a nice balance. It's not overly sweet. You do get the lactose. It is a sweeter, creamier. You almost get a vanilla essence to it, although, you know, they didn't brew with vanilla, but they, you taste the roasted malts. You taste the ethanol, surprisingly, which is, I'm not fond of the fact that I really taste that 10%. And then you get maple syrup. I mean, it's a maple syrup. I wouldn't say it's a maple syrup bomb, you know, it's not exploding with maple syrup to your face like that's all you can taste, because you do get the base stout. But, like I said, it's still cold. I don't know if I let this set long enough, but I'll go ahead and give you another taste. Again, the aroma, just maple syrup. I'm getting maybe subtle roasted malt. Excuse me. Maybe a little vanilla. This beer is thin, which is unfortunate. I've never had a bad beer by Untitled Art. Again, you know, all taste is subjective. You know, just because I don't like something doesn't mean the beer is necessarily bad. But I prefer my stouts to be a little thicker. I know barrel aging sometimes tends to thin out stouts, but this beer has not been barrel aged. Like I said up front, you get the ethanol. You almost get, as it's warming slightly, you know, with my hand around it, I'm almost getting the astringency of the alcohol, which I do not enjoy. Then you get subtle roasted malt. You know, this is not a malt bomb. And then you get just maple syrup, and the maple syrup is sweet, but it's, like I said, it's not cloyingly sweet, so it's not overwhelming. The main thing that is shutting me off to this beer, at least first glance, you know, I could potentially change my mind as this warms up. I'm not sure. I've never had this beer, but its thin mouthfeel really turns me off. And its ethanol punch, I mean, it tastes like I'm drinking a 13% or 14% beer, which, you know, if I were, then I would understand why this is such an ethanol kick. I've never really heard of Listerman Brewing Company, actually. I don't know what beers that they brew. I don't know their reputation. But I've never had a basic Untitled Art or collaborative beer by Untitled Art that I've ever been not fond of. This beer is I don't want to say it's a miss, because I like to form my opinion after I've drank the entire beer, but as of right now, this is mediocre, honestly. I mean, if this is as good as it's gonna get, in my opinion, I've had far superior beers, far superior maple syrup stouts, I should say. And there are quite a bit of brewing companies that are actually brewing their variations of their stout with maple syrup. Oh yeah, again, it's not really changed in the first 3 sips. Just to give you another description, up front, ethanol punch, just massive ethanol punch. You get your roasted malt, you almost get a caramel sweetness to it, maybe the subtlest of vanilla characteristics, and then a very upfront maple syrup flavor that is a genuine maple syrup. It doesn't taste artificial, and like I said, it's sweet, but it's not so sweet that it hurts your teeth. But other than that, there's not much to this beer. I mean, this seems like a very basic stout, and there's nothing. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with this. You know, you don't always go into beer expecting to have a world-class beer, but I just don't think this hits the mark for me as like, oh my God, I just had a world-class stout or an amazing beer. This is not a bad beer, because I've had way worse, but this hits the mark of what I really want it to be. I mean, I want it to be almost a tar-like mouthfeel. Excuse me. Then I wanted to have more vanilla characteristics with a lactose, a more creamy mouthfeel. I mean, I'm getting the lactose but it's not very noticeable. I mean, you almost have to search for it. I mean, I can taste the lactose, but it's not contributing really much other than flavor-wise. And then the maple syrup, like I said, is there. It's good. I'm glad I can taste it. It's not hidden at all, like I've said, that tends to happen with some beers. But it's just I mean, this tastes like, honestly, it's thin, like I've said. This tastes like a Guinness with maple syrup. Again, I'm not bashing this beer. I'm sure many people have had it by now. I know this just came out a month ago. I don't know the distribution on this beer. I know you can get it in Wisconsin. I assume you can get it in Cincinnati because their collaboration with this particular beer is in Cincinnati. But this just doesn't hit it for me. I mean, I am disappointed. I'll give you one more final taste. It's not changed, no. Just ethanol, ethanol, ethanol. Subtle roasted malts. Lactose, which gives it it almost kind of tastes, I'm not going to say soured because this is not a bad beer. This beer's not gone bad, but this lactose with the maple syrup sweetness almost kind of makes it taste, I wouldn't say curdled, but it's giving an odd aftertaste now as it's warming up. And then you just get the maple syrup. I mean, that's really it. It's not a very big descriptive beer, at least from my standpoint. Untitled Art Brewing Company and Listerman Brewing Company's Wisconsin Stout brewed with lactose and maple syrup, coming in at 10% alcohol by volume. That's it. I mean, it's a maple syrup stout with lactose. If you've ever had one, you know what I'm talking about. It's nothing fancy. It's not great, but it's not bad either. I recommend you give it a try if you can find it. And this has been my review on Untitled Art and Listerman Brewing Company's Wisconsin Stout brewed with lactose and maple syrup. Thank you, and I hope you've enjoyed my review.